Hello, this is George from MetalDisciple.com, and I'm here to give you the highlights for this week's reviews. This week on MetalDisciple.com, we featured albums from Doro, Wintersun, Anaal, Nathrakh, Hooded Menace, and Dethklok. Doro Pesh, she is my first lady of metal. Way back in the 80s, a lifetime ago, I first saw Doro when she was in Warlock, opening for Megadeth. That was the tour supporting Triumph and Agony. It turned out this was the last album for Warlock, but for a young metal disciple, it was simply amazing. Doro was, and still is, a beautiful German warrior queen. She rocked my teenage world. I was sad that Warlock broke up so soon after I discovered them, but Doro went on to continue as a solo artist, and here she is all these years later, releasing Raise Your Fist, her 12th album. Maybe I'm biased, but I've never heard anyone that sounds quite like Doro. Her voice is so powerful and has an edge to it which makes her undeniably metal, while also remaining catchy as hell. She can rock out with full throttle metal, or rein it in and knock out a beautiful ballad. Speaking of ballads, track 4 on Raise Your Fist is It Still Hurts, a duet with the man himself, Lemmy. Lemmy's voice is certainly an acquired taste for many people, but when he does a ballad, it always gives me chills. See Love Me Forever off Motorhead's 1916 album. Lemmy, paired with Doro, is to me an instant classic. If anyone here is looking for an unkind word about Doro, you might as well go fuck off right now. I could never, and will never, have anything bad to say about her or her music. Her voice is still as incredible as always, and her songs rock just as hard as they did back in the day. Bow down to the Queen of Metal, and then raise your fist in the air. Next up we have Wintersun and Time, Part 1. There was apparently a lot of anticipation for Time, which is Wintersun's second album. Fans had to wait 8 years for the second installment. I may have a copy of the first album somewhere, but I was pretty oblivious to the anticipation for this album till I started reading about it online. I listened to a couple of clips, and I got the impression that this was just another power metal album. Apparently I did not listen close enough, because this is no mere power metal album. I've heard more than my share of melodic death metal bands, particularly Swedish ones, but symphonic melodic death metal? Haven't heard a lot of that. Main man Jari was once a member of Ensiferum, but I think of them as more Viking folk metal than symphonic. There are only 5 songs on this album, and 2 of those are instrumentals, but the album still pulls out a 40-minute playtime. With the exception of the instrumentals, the tracks are pretty long. The first track, When Time Fades Away, sets the symphonic tone and makes me want to play Skyrim again. I cannot be sure if I've ever heard an album quite like this one. It is huge and epic like symphonic and power metal, but the vocals range from clean to a harsh Alexei Children of Bodom kind of snarl. And then of course, the songs are long as hell, like black metal songs, but I'm sitting here looking around for the kitchen sink because this album has everything. The second track, Sons of Winter and Stars, made my head want to explode. The sound is just so monstrously huge. This does not sound so much like a band, but rather like a musical army. I'm serious. I felt like my brain was expanding, trying to take it all in. The gruff vocals on Land of Snow and Sorrow made me think of Sweden's fallen son, Korthon. I think he would have totally dug this album. Wow. Just wow. I am doing a one-man standing ovation for Wintersun. So when is Time Part 2 coming? Hopefully sooner rather than later. Pick this album up now. It is a masterpiece. Anaal Nathrakh from the UK is back with their 7th album of extreme metal, Vanitas. This duo has been on my radar for years, yet I've never given them much attention. Despite the band receiving praise from the metal media, the few clips I heard never impressed me enough to get me listening to the band in depth. Turns out that was my loss. With more praise arriving for this latest album, I decided to sit down and give it my full attention. It did not take long to hear the error of my past conclusions. Let me just begin with saying that Vanitas is an amazing album. The clips I listened to in the past just sounded like noise, but I was not listening to enough to get what was going on with their music. Taken out of context, it sounded like unskilled noise. Taken in context of the entire song, that noise becomes brilliant art. I expected all the songs to be one long wall of noise, with nothing distinguishing one song from another. There are certainly moments of such all-out aggression, but there also is so much more. These songs combine the extremity of grindcore with the grand melodic layering of black metal and even a little bit of industrial. Another thing I noticed fairly quickly was that despite the extreme nature of the songs, not all the vocals are harsh. There's actually quite a lot of clean vocal work, and I love it because it's done without any kind of cheese factor. The clean vocals on this album, rather than taking away from the extremity, actually add to its dark beauty by bringing contrast and a different kind of power. I cannot help but compare it with how brilliantly Cattle Decapitation incorporated cleaner vocals on their latest, Monolith of Inhumanity. What really left me feeling chagrined was the fact that upon listening to earlier albums, I found that they've been including clean vocals all along. This is me finally jumping on the bandwagon and declaring Anaal Nathrakh to be masters of extreme metal. Be sure to check these guys out. Effigies of Evil is the third album from Finnish death doom band Hooded Menace. I've been waiting since September to slip this into the rotation somewhere, and the time has finally arrived. I receive so much submitted music these days that I can hardly get in something that I've picked up myself, but I just had to talk about this album. Hooded Menace is probably the epitome of where my musical tastes lay at this moment. The music is fairly doom in nature, though oftentimes a bit faster than one would think for doom. Even when these songs are quick, the riffing is still very much doom in execution, if not pacing. The vocals are harsh and have a deep, from the crypt sound, like funeral doom, which combined with the music makes for an uber-heavy album. Sometimes the ultra-slow pace of funeral doom is just what I need, but other times I want a little more weight behind the riffs, which can only be achieved through an increased tempo. I love how Hooded Menace makes music which is so abominably heavy, yet is fast enough that I can still bang my head to it. This is one of those situations where clean vocals just do not seem like they could ever be appropriate. These harsh vocals are so monstrous that anything clean seems like it would not only break the mood, but would probably get swallowed up by the all-encompassing power of the dark. The production sounds very well done, particularly for this style. The drums have a nice punch to them, and the guitars have a beautiful distortion tone. The vocals, and everything else, are mixed perfectly. There just isn't a single thing about this album that I do not adore. Prepare for despair and pick up the latest Hooded Menace. I was thrilled, as I'm sure many metal fans were, to learn there was an animated TV series that revolves around a death metal band. Metal has perpetually been perceived as second class by the rest of the world, but Metalocalypse delivers metal into the mainstream spotlight without compromising the integrity of the music or the culture. Whether mainstreaming is good or bad is up for ferocious debate, I am certain. Sure, the show pokes some fun at the metal community, but in a good way that we can laugh about rather than be insulted by. This is a metal show for metal fans by a metal fan. I watch Metalocalypse and listen to the Dethklok CDs, but it never really occurred to me to review any of the albums. A lot of the early songs were over-the-top, tongue-in-cheek material that played into the humor of the show. So while I thought it was cool, it was still more humor than actual music for me. Then a few days ago, I was texting with my friend Buke, and he told me I should do a review of the latest Dethklok because it sold 20,000 copies in its first week and landed at number 10 on the Billboard chart. To my knowledge, this has never been achieved by a death metal band. This rocked me back on my heels a little bit. As a metal fan, I've learned not to give a flying fuck about Billboard or its charts, because good music almost never ends up on their list, let alone in the top 10. Sure, the occasional Metallica album or whatnot, but mostly this is the territory of Justin Bieber and Lady Gaga. Now, here I learn that a death metal album has made the top 10. Of course, it would take a popular TV show to get the music there, but still, quite an achievement regardless of what I think of Billboard. This is more a testament to metal fans than the corporate machine. Metalocalypse creator Brendan Small was quoted as saying, "Thanks to the fans for actually buying music in a world where they don't have to." I agree, and this achievement makes me proud of the fans that stepped up and put down their hard-earned money to support a metal band, fictitious or not. This reinforces my belief that metal fans are the most rabidly loyal music fans around. I salute you. So after I finished talking with Buke, I hit up the iTunes store on my phone and I bought Dethalbum III. Any reservations I had about reviewing Dethklok quickly melted away. The songs on this album are just as legitimate as the music by any other metal band, and to be honest, a hell of a lot better than most. These songs fucking kill. Dethklok songs are technical, brutal, and masterfully produced, and it certainly doesn't hurt to have the mighty Gene Hoglan pounding the skins. This album proves that Dethklok, while animated characters on a screen, are a real band that should be taken seriously. I haven't been taken with a TV band like this since I was a little kid singing along to the Monkees. All hail Dethklok! Ah! Anyway, that's it for this week. Check back next week. Hopefully next week. We'll see maybe if I do this again. Alright. Take it easy.